Don't forget, of course, we will have Meghan Markle coming up, that extraordinary interview in the US today. Some of you won't care, a bit like me maybe. Some of you need to know. We will discuss it and show you some excerpts later on in the program. But for now, I want to talk about International Women's Day. Now, as you can imagine, I'm a little less excited about this than many other people. I see it as a day often for virtue signalling and identity politics. Labor and the left love all that stuff, of course, and today they've announced what they call a gender pay gap policy. It's already illegal to pay women less than men in the same job, of course, but Labor wants to appeal on this stuff, and it wants to force companies to publicly reveal their gender pay policies and results. It's a name and shame policy.
Pressure on the companies to do something about it. And the evidence overseas is that it works, is that once you have that transparency and accountability, and a range of companies, I might say, publicly declare this right now today, and they're the companies that are doing the right thing. They're the companies that are trying to address the gender pay gap. So we're very confident that it will be a major step forward.
More red tape for companies. Let's bring in Shivani Gopal now from Remarkable Woman. Good to see you, Shivani.
Great to be here, Chris.
The gender pay gap. We always hear about these figures. Women paid 13%, I think is the latest figure, 13 to 14% less than men. But this has always worked out on average earnings, and there's all sorts of factors at play. We know under law that if you and I are doing the same job, there's no way you can be paid less than me, right?
You're right, Chris. Under law, there is no way that I'm allowed to be paid less than you. The funny thing is, it keeps happening. How does this happen? And the numbers don't lie. The gender pay gap is incredibly stubborn. It has gone down. It used to be 14%. It's now 13.4%. And that only really happened because men also started earning so much less during COVID-19. And so it'll probably bounce back up next year. The reason, however, this keeps happening is that the law is there, it's black and white, but it's humans who hire, and humans are fallible, and we are exposed to biases just like anyone else, whether we admit it or not. And there are two key biases. One is a confirmation bias, and the second is a male breadwinner bias that generally stands in people's way, and as a result means that men are greater rewarded for their talents and their efforts than women. And it will happen in two areas. One is where you've got pay bands. Let's just say you and I are doing the same job, but the job has a pay band of, say, between 100 and 120 grand, right? We may find that you get paid the 120 and I get paid the 100, but we're both in the same pay band. See how it can happen? And then there's bonuses.
We don't know. I don't know what my female colleagues are paid, so it'll be an interesting exercise, probably not.
And I'm not saying that that's what you earn, of course.
No. The issue here, though, is we understand that happens, right? But we also understand that a large part of this, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. A large part of this is choices that women make. More family-friendly hours, perhaps stepping out of the workforce for a period, coming back into jobs. There have been studies that show that jobs that are excessively demanding on people's time and reduce their time with family are more often taken by men because families choose to divide up in that way. The man spends more time at work, the female partner, even though perhaps in a similar pay band less. Is that how do we make allowances for that sort of thing? Because it's going to reflect in the figures, in the average figures, right?
Yeah, sure it is. And what's really sad is that when you have an industry that becomes female-dominated, the entire average pay for that entire industry drops. And so this is how undervalued women's labour really is. And COVID-19 has taught us that so much because by and large women are taking on the domestic duties and mental load, and so many men have come out going, oh my goodness, I can't believe there's all this invisible work happening. But to your point, it's a self-perpetuating cycle. See, women are often taking on those flexible choices because it seems like it's the pragmatic, natural thing to do. Hey, if I'm earning less, then maybe I should work less.
Sure, there's a bit of that. But it's also a decision for couples too, isn't it? And couples, and look, don't get me wrong, there's an issue here.
Yeah.
I just get frustrated with people pointing to this simplistic idea of the gender pay gap. From my experience with many women in various professions, what's more practical is that women, sure, especially if they're going to have a family, by necessity have to interrupt their careers. And under law and most practices, companies, that should not be a setback. You should be able to take a year off work or more for family reasons and then come back and your career progress. A lot of women say when they come back, they're sidelined or even moved backwards. And that, to me, is grossly unfair.
It's grossly unfair, and what's really quite concerning is that men also face that same stigma. You see, men also, by and large, but especially the Gen X, the millennial generation, they want to take time off to spend time with their kids, but they're facing that same stigma that women are, where women are discriminated against. They are, people opting them out of opportunities on their behalf and so forth, and so men aren't doing that. So you need to change that structurally by having senior leadership actually activate for flexible workplace options. The Nordic countries do this so very well.
I've been sent in a graft, admittedly from a Liberal politician, but it shows me the gender pay gap as so-called on average earnings over the past 20 or 30 years. And it shows that it actually went up when Labor was in power back a decade ago, and it has been trending down from 18% down to just below 14% now. Is that an encouraging trend from your point of view, or do you worry, as you say, that it's about to go up again?
Look, it's encouraging. It certainly was incredibly high at 18%, and it's trending downwards, which is great. But it's so stubborn. You know, for the last few years, I feel like I keep having the same conversation. We're at 14.5, 13.4 or something like that, and it's not really moving. And what we really need to have is two things. We need to have transparency around pay, because when you have that, there's greater levels of accountability, and people are striving up to earn those high levels of money rather than everyone collectively earning less. So there's got to be more work around that. And also there's got to be a lot of focus on the senior levels as well, because key management personnel, when they're women, will earn up to $100,000 less. And these women who are taking on, as you were saying, they're taking on, these executive roles, but they're earning $100,000 less. So look, it's encouraging in terms of the progress that we have, but it's still not enough. We need some ample action around this.
Well, thanks for joining us. I should have said at the outset, Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, and to all the women in your life too, Chris.